Hey folks, Jordan with the Young Turks and TYT Politics. Hope you're having a lovely Monday and you had a nice weekend. I'm here in New York. I will be flying out Wednesday to Atlanta to cover the Netroots Nation conference. Netroots Nation, another very progressive conference, so I'll be down in Atlanta for a few days covering that. Right now, I wanted to talk to you about what I think is one of the most underreported or not reported at all stories of 2017, and it was also one of the most underreported stories of 2016. If you remember, exactly a year ago, myself, Eric Byler, first went down to East Chicago, Indiana. East Chicago, Indiana is in Indiana, not Chicago, and it was the site of another lead crisis, this time with arsenic and all sorts of other goodies. East Chicago, Indiana was one of the most industrialized cities in all of America for years. You had lead factories, steel factories, paint factories, insecticide factories, all in this community. And essentially, they built up low-income housing on top of a lead smelting plant and left poor African Americans and Latinos to live near a lead smelting plant for decades. And shocker, in 2016, once a full study was done, it was shown that there were ground soil levels of lead in the soil upwards of 212 times the allowable limit of lead in one low-income African-American predominantly complex called the West Calumet Complex. Now, when I was there in August for the first time of last year, I asked an EPA official, have you tested the water? They told me this is not like Flint. There is no reason to test the water. It's not a water problem. It's a soil problem. 4 months later, it was shown water had lead in it. I have gone in along with an independent investigator, a water investigator named Scott Smith, who tested the water and found bacteria and other toxins that the EPA and state officials were not searching for. Now, who was the governor of Indiana when all of this came out? Mike Pence, the current vice president. Who was the governor who, when all of this came out, never went down to speak with the lead-poisoned and other contaminants that they were poisoned by citizens of East Chicago, Indiana? Mike Pence. He never once went down to East Chicago to talk to poor, capital P, poor, black people and Latinos. East Chicago, Indiana, predominantly poor people, predominantly black people, predominantly Latino people. Heavy percentage are immigrants who immigrated legally. And all of this, you could watch this all. If you don't know the story, it's on the playlist tab on TYT Politics. So just click on playlists. I believe it's Indiana lead poisoning. So Mike Pence, governor of Indiana, when all this was going on, he never went down to East Chicago, Indiana to go survey the site, talk to the affected citizens, come up with a plan. But when Greentown, Indiana, which is predominantly white, had a lead problem, oh, Mike Pence, he hurried down to Greentown, Indiana. He got down there. And you know how long it took for that problem to be fixed? Lead in the water? 2 months. 2 months for white people. But for poor black people, for poor Latinos, this has been going on a year. And by the way, they've been contaminated by the lead in the soil and arsenic in the soil and bacteria for way longer than a year. This is just when the EPA finally tested and it was revealed the lengths of the poisoning. But the contamination has been going on for decades. And if you go through my videos on the playlist, again, TYT Politics, click on playlists, Indiana lead poisoning, I have talked to dozens of residents who never had health problems before they moved to East Chicago, who never had health problems before they moved into this poor government housing complex, West Calumet Complex. Never had any health issues. One woman, Keisha Daniels, at 29 years old, after moving into the West Calumet Complex, in 29 years old, had to have a full hysterectomy at 29 years old, and now is disabled. Never had health problems before. So, what's the current news? Today, Monday, Housing and Urban Development Chair, I believe, Ben Carson, finally is gracing East Chicago with his presence. So Ben Carson is in East Chicago, Indiana today to listen to affected residents. So Ben Carson, the governor, Eric Holcomb, Indiana Senator Joe Donnelly will be meeting with East Chicago residents, some of which I keep in contact with consistently. He will be meeting with residents and affected people who have been poisoned to talk about their concerns, to talk about what do they need, and to hopefully come up with a plan so that this does not become the next Flint, which 3.5 years after the water was switched in Flint, people are still sick. People still can't get medical coverage, and the pipes have not been fixed. So why is this important that the residents are meeting with Ben Carson today? And by the way, let's keep it real. Does anyone honestly think Ben Carson is going to do anything? I'm sorry. Ben Carson, the brainiac who ran for president. Ben Carson, who believes in this Seventh-day Adventism quack stuff. Ben Carson, who apparently is a neurosurgeon, but is working in the Trump administration. Does anyone think Ben Carson and HUD or Trump's administration is going to help the poor black and Latino people of East Chicago who have been poisoned unless you, the viewers, you, the citizens, light a fire under their tushes? I don't think so. This is the only way things in Flint have changed. Citizen activism, independent journalism. That's how you're going to force them to do something. So Ben Carson, they're all meeting. I've been speaking with some of the members and some of the residents who will be meeting with Carson tonight. They will report to me what happened in that meeting after. But why is this so important? Because the people of East Chicago, Indiana, they don't even know if they could safely drink the water. They don't know right now if they could safely drink the water in East Chicago. And the EPA and the state environmental departments haven't given them a firm answer. Sound familiar to other places all across America? Flint, if you're watching. North Carolina, which I've just been down to cover another. More cancer-causing chemicals now dumped in water. So here's the headline for the Chicago Tribune. It's a disaster. East Chicago still reeling from lead crisis, and EPA can't say if water is safe. How does that make you feel if you have children in East Chicago, or if you want to know if you've been drinking safe water that's not going to give you long-term health problems or worse? In 2009, East Chicago's Calumet neighborhood got a new name, the USS Lead Superfund site. The federal designation triggered the Environmental Protection Agency to start developing a plan to clean up lead contamination around the homes of the people who lived in Calumet. Maritza Lopez, who I've interviewed several times, Maritza Lopez attended a meeting in 2012 about the cleanup and another in 2014. Lopez, like others, said the EPA didn't convey to residents a sense of urgent danger. That all changed July 22nd, 2016, so a little over a year ago, when East Chicago Mayor Anthony Copeland sent West Calumet Housing Complex residents a letter informing them that they had to move because of the high levels of lead and arsenic in the soil. This is the letter they got. When I asked the EPA official on the ground, hey, did you test the water? No, we don't need to test the water. So they didn't test the water. And guess what? Water, months later, was found to have lead. As the news set in for those residents, others living in the Calumet neighborhood saw a growing number of EPA crews taking soil samples, and they later learned the contamination was outside their homes as well. So this has all been out for a year. And Mike Pence, when he was governor, didn't do a damn thing. And the Trump administration so far, with Mike Pence as the vice president, hasn't done a damn thing. But remember, when Mike Pence was governor, he sure went down to the White Town, Greentown, Indiana. He went down there personally, and that problem was fixed in 2 months. So don't tell me that it's not a race issue. Don't tell me that it's not about how much money you have. It is. For the trolls who say, stop making it about race. Do you see communities with wealthy people, wealthy white people? You think they're sitting there waiting a year later to know if their water is safe to drink? Hell no. Hell no. I don't care if you're wealthy. I don't care if you're white. I don't care if you're poor. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're Latino. I don't care if you're green. If through no fault of your own, your water is contaminated or your soil is contaminated, that should be fixed as soon as humanly possible. You should be made whole. You should get Medicare for life, frankly. And you shouldn't have to pay bills for your health expenses due to you being poisoned by your government. I don't care if you're wealthy, poor, black, white. That should be done. It hasn't been done for the people of Flint, and it's not being done for the people of East Chicago. Ben Carson going down there today is a good sign, but we need more than, a photo op with Ben Carson. EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt, that climate change denying genius, he's already gone down there. And nothing has been done. Nothing of substance. So let me read you the lingering questions. The West Calumet complex sits empty, now surrounded by a chain-link fence topped with razor wire. The specter of the complex that once housed more than 1,000 residents haunts the neighborhood as it's soon destined for the wrecking ball. But people want to know, okay, is our water safe? So let me read you that part, if my computer would work with me. Ryan said she lived in the complex for 10 years and raised children in the contamination, as did many other families. We're worried about the effects of lead on our children prior to and up to this point. The Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, in concert with the Indiana State Department of Health, is in the process of updating the health assessment for the Superfund site. The study will explore the incidence of diseases associated with lead and arsenic exposure, according to the Agency for Toxic Substances, and pull information from local, state, and federal sources. I'm sorry, studies are great, but we need more than studies immediately. We need water delivered home to home, which they've never done in Flint, and what we really need is Medicare for life. And we need all of these people checked head to toe to see what their lead levels are, and if they have lead poisoning or they have bacterial infections, that needs to be covered by the federal government. If you're poisoned through no fault of your own, you need to be taken care of. Like I said, rich or poor, it doesn't matter. So the most troubling part, and again, this all happened under Governor Mike Pence, who never went down to help these people, to hear their concerns. He sent at the time his lieutenant governor. And you know what else Mike Pence did? On the campaign trail, he left the campaign trail because there was a tornado in a white town. So I had to get that photo up of him bravely leaving the campaign trail to go help white people in a tornado. And by the way, that's a good thing. He should have done that. You should help white people in a tornado. You should help black people in a tornado. You should help rich people in a tornado. You should help poor people in a tornado. I'm not against what he did. I'm against what he didn't do. He did not help the people of East Chicago, Indiana, and he's gotten away with it because the corporate media does not report accurately on who Mike Pence is. They report, oh, Mike Flynn, he never told Mike Pence certain things, and Mike Pence was left in the dark. And now there's a story out there that Mike Pence is meeting with donors for possibly running against Trump in the primary in 2020. How about you report on this, on lead poisoning, on arsenic poisoning, on possible bacteria poisoning of poor people? Mike Pence might have not caused it, but he certainly did not respond the same way to poor minorities that he did to white people. Ebert Williams has a simple question for the EPA last week. Is the water safe to drink? Quote, I cannot absolutely say, Christopher Korleski, Director of Water Division at EPA Region 5, said during an EPA forum. And there are a lot of factors that go into determining the safety of drinking water. How's that for an answer? You want to know if the water's safe for your kids to drink? I can't tell you absolutely. Can't say absolutely. But that question has been on the mind of other Calumet residents who had water filters installed on their taps this spring by the Indiana Department of Environmental Management. So we're getting the Flint treatment here. They're just going to throw shoddy water filters at people and say, oh, it's safe to drink with a water filter. If you see my reporting in Flint, water filters do not 100% eliminate lead. Water filters can actually create bacteria. So it doesn't eliminate lead 100%, and it doesn't stop bacteria. In fact, it could create bacteria. So what are they doing for the people in Indiana? No, you're not getting Medicare for life. No, we're not going to deliver water bottles to your home. No, we're not actually going to change pipes underground either. We're just going to give you water filters and say we're doing a study. We're going to study the effects of lead. Is the water safe even with the filters? Daniels said. I guess we'll find that out next time. Water testing the EPA conducted at the Superfund site in late 2016 showed elevated levels of contamination in the drinking water. The agency found that 18 out of the 43 homes where the water was tested exceeded 15 parts per billion of lead, the EPA's threshold for water safety. As I've told you over and over again, it's nonsense to say if it's under 15 billion parts per billion, if it's under 15 parts per billion, you're okay. Somebody could drink water that has 15 parts per billion of lead in it and be fine. And somebody else whose immune system is compromised, who is older, who is younger, for whatever the purpose, whatever the reason, can drink water that has 7 parts per billion. And their immune system could go way out of whack. The appropriate level of lead in your drinking water is 0. Residents of Flint will tell you that. Residents of East Chicago, Erin Brockovich, Scott Smith, they'll all tell you should not have lead leaching off in your water. It's not safe at any level. At any level. And by the way, if there's lead in the drinking water, how do you know if it's safe to shower or bathe? Well, you don't, because the EPA doesn't test the shower water. The EPA does not have measurements or standards for showering or bathing. They do for drinking water, but they don't have those same measurements for showering or bathing. So you're shit out of luck there too. And I've met so many residents in East Chicago who now have to wonder if cancer that they got at a very early age with no family history is because of the lead or the arsenic or other contaminants. And the answer to them, is your water safe to drink? I cannot absolutely say. Christopher Korleski, Director of Water Division at EPA Region 5, said. Meanwhile, Vice President Mike Pence, who was governor when this happened, I'm not blaming him entirely that it happened. This is decades in the making in East Chicago. It was an industrialized city where they moved in poor black people and poor Latino people and put them right on a lead smelting plant. This was a dangerous, dangerous industrial building plan where they didn't consider the long-term effects. But if you're governor, okay, if you're governor of the state and this is happening under your nose, why is it that you care when it's white people? Greentown, Indiana, 96% white. But when it's poor black people, when it's poor Latinos, I'll send my lieutenant governor. Let me keep campaigning. And by the way, Mike Pence, he denied disaster relief requests for East Chicago, Indiana. He denied the disaster relief request. The new governor, Eric Holcomb, who's a Republican, by the way, he approved that disaster request very quickly after becoming governor. So when you hear the corporate media report on Mike Pence and, ooh, is he running in 2020? He's meeting with donors, isn't that? This is who Mike Pence is. He's a racist. And I don't have a problem saying that because I have proof. When you treat certain classes of people one way, when you treat people with money one way, but you don't give a damn about people, black people, Latino people, people with lesser means, people living in government housing, oh, I don't need to bother going down there. What would you call that? I try to cover as much of this water contamination as I can, whether it's Flint, East Chicago, North Carolina. I get messages every day with other contaminated places. I'm only one person, and by the way, my rotator cuff is torn. So I've been dealing with that and going to physical therapy / chiropractic every day, and now need surgery on my rotator cuff. So when you see me holding up the microphone and my face looks like I want to cry, that's why. My rotator cuff is partially torn. So, I will update you on what this meeting brings, what Ben Carson tells the residents, if there's any measurable results. But I'm going to keep reporting on this because it's important. And black people, Latino people, white people, rich people, poor people, they should know if their water is safe. And if it's not, they should have water delivered to their homes. They should get Medicare for all. So they're not paying out of pocket thousands of dollars for medical costs attributed to being poisoned. And the EPA and the Trump administration or the Obama administration, which this happened under and Flint happened under, they need to do more than more studies. They need to do more than go down to listen to the residents. You need to make these people as whole as humanly possible. Period. Thank you for watching. I will be going on youtube.com I will be going on TYT Politics Facebook shortly to do another story on my dear friend, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I'll see you on Facebook soon. Bye-bye.